dark, you can't go to sleep. With the heart racing from anger and fire, gotta move your feet, run from desire. Better run from the devil, leave your fears behind. Run from the devil's son, seek the divine. You better move yourself and move towards the light, or you'll soon find out there ain't no path to find.
In the moonlight, hear the sirens sing. Alarm bells blow, they start to ring. The breathless chases through this haunting night. Every step you take clears your sight. Better run from the devil, leave your fears behind. Run out from the devil's song, seek the divine. You better move yourself and move towards the light, or you'll soon find out there ain't no path to find. Leave your fears behind. Run out from the devil's song, seek the divine. You better move yourself and move towards the light, or you'll soon find out there ain't no path to find.
Run from the devil. Run for the devil. Run for the devil. echoes, shadows creep. A whisper in the dark, you can't go to sleep. With the heart racing from anger and fire, gotta move your feet, run from desire. Better run from the devil, leave your fears behind. Run from the devil's son, seek the divine. You better move yourself and move towards the light, or you'll soon find out there ain't no path to find.
In the moonlight, hear the sirens sing. Alarm bells blow, they start to ring. With a breath that's chasing through this haunting night. Every step you take clears your sight. Better run from the devil, leave your fears behind. Run from the devil's son, seek the divine. You better move yourself and move towards the light, or you'll soon find out there ain't no path to find.
So I'm at work and I'm standing on the top of a 40-foot ladder, right? With a 20-year-old kid on the ground passing tools up to me. And as he does so, he's trying to lecture me about staying objective. And the only thing that comes to my mind at that time is, damn, they really do a number on these kids. You guys ever notice that? How we're always told to stay objective, as if such a thing even exists, right? A few months back, I had someone call into this show telling me there was no way I would ever believe them because I was biased. But you're goddamn right I'm biased. Everyone's biased. You're damn right. I'm partisan. I'm hyper partisan. We are hyper partisan. All worldviews are from a certain perspective, right? And on behalf, whether you know it or not, of a certain particular social force or class. We're simply honest about it. We don't pretend that our worldview represents all classes. We are for the proletariat. We are for the working class. We are against the ruling elites. The entire concrete worldview of how society functions, the worldview that we call Marxism-Leninism. It is precisely from the point of view of the proletariat. And it proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that the ruling class are our enemy. And we don't have to get into how at the moment, I guess, but they are parasites. They add nothing to society. And if they did at some, time in the distant past, that time's long over. They exist now like a permanent vampire latched onto our collective neck. And our worldview is based on the necessity of removing that vampire in order for society to survive. Nothing is objective. Objectivity is a lie. It's a shadow on the wall of Plato's cave. But I want to get sort of current for a minute here, because over the weekend, something historic happened. For the first time since any of us can remember, really, people began fighting back effectively against some of the biggest monsters in history. I mean, you guys have, seen the reports and the videos of missiles hitting Tel Aviv. The anti-human monsters who've been waging a war of extermination against the people of Palestine who have been crying as a fraction of what they've done has been turned around on them. And you guys have seen that too, Are they objective, though? Are the Zionists objective? I mean, they may pretend at it, right? I mean, they pretended a lot, They pretend it was some organic movement of the people in the first place. When in reality, Zionism was pushed by the socioeconomic elites within the Jewish community, the ruling class within the Jewish community, in collusion with the ruling class of the British Empire. And they sold this idea of labor Zionism, if you guys remember that, pretending it was, about some working class Jews building a new society where they could be safe. But that was always a scam. When they were welcomed to live in peace by the people who already called that land home, they responded to that peace with, I don't need to tell you guys how they responded. But it wasn't some working class movement at all. It was the Irgun and the Haganah, or Haganah, I forget how you pronounce it, the violent extremist gangs who led the Nakba in the first place, right? Who terrorized Palestinians, who burned villages and massacred families to create Israel, or, occupied Palestine. And all of that needs some sort of justification. So they justify that horror show by, doing things like pretending in objectivity, or by twisting ancient Jewish religious myths into Zionist propaganda. Like the myth of the wandering Jew, right? That was an archetype that had existed for centuries. It was a story about perseverance while in exile. But in the late 1800s, they began to rewrite the entire ending. The wandering Jew is no longer wandering once he settles in occupied Palestine. And over the years, this spiritual metaphor has become an ethno-nationalist mandate. And that's part of how they brainwash innocent young Jewish kids, whether they grow up there or they move there from, Brooklyn with their hipster parents or whatever, by feeding them these warped stories from childhood on, making them believe that their identity is tied to a piece of land that ain't fucking theirs. And the real sort of, I don't know how to put it, I guess masterstroke of this came in the 1960s, when these same elites sort of began to weaponize the Holocaust itself. Did you know before then, most Americans didn't even know that Jews had been persecuted more than others under the Nazis, believe it or not. But the Zionists built an entire industry around that, right? Thousands of museums and organizations like the ADL, along with what later came in the lobbies for occupied Palestine that they call Israel. Those are all designed to launder guilt into political support for their imperialist project. And they even recruit, other sort of religious zealots, like evangelical Zionists, right? Which is sort of a pure modern creation of the Zionist project, which is always weird to me. These like so-called Christian Zionists, they don't even believe that Jews are going to survive the rapture, but they'll happily fund apartheid if it speeds up Armageddon, I guess. The really wild thing, though, is that Zionism, and you hate to say this, but it's so true. Zionism accepts the same ideological premise as Nazism. I mean, they use Nazism as a justification, of course, but at the same time, they embrace its race essentialism and its ethno-nationalism, right? Both of them say that Jews can't assimilate into Europe. They both say that ethno-states are the answer. Whoa, must be a coincidence, right? In fact, Hitler himself supported mass deportation over extermination until 1941. And what was Zionism, right? It was a plan to put Jews anywhere else. The Zionists and the Nazis shared that same goal, a Europe without Jews. In fact, one of the primary founders of Zionism, Theodor Herzl, even straight up said that the anti-Semites will become their most dependable friends. And the anti-Semitic countries, they're allies because of that. Their interests align. And honestly, despite what any anti-communists will tell you or utopians or whatever, that is how history moves. Common class interests. Necessity, not ideology. And these are common bourgeois class interests for them. I don't know. You know what's crazy though? I had someone tell me I was making that up once, that thing about Herzl. But dude, that's not even the worst part. Look up the deals they made at some point. Like the Havara agreement from 33. That's a doozy, I guess. We'll use doozy. But that's when the Zionists made a deal with the Nazis to transfer 60,000 Jews and their capital, by the way, to Palestine, which broke the Jewish-led anti-Nazi boycott that was going on at the time. And this is precisely why I like to focus on this one, by the way. It shows the deep class divide within necessity, right? And how Zionism has always been a bourgeois project. It needs anti-Semitism, right? It depends on it as its moral justification for the atrocities it commits. I mean, look how it uses it today, right? Everyone who criticizes their fake-ass country gets labeled an anti-Semite. But beyond that, when they make these when they commit these atrocities, they're doing so while claiming ownership over all Jews and over Judaism itself. And we'll get into this tonight, but when they do that, when they spend millions pushing that all over the mainstream media, it has an immediate response. People react and they believe them. And what do you guys think that creates? It creates the mouth-breathing morons who follow Nick Fuentes, right? And while we're on this, Orthodox Jews have always opposed Zionism on religious grounds, right? According to their faith, only God can reinstate the Holy Land, can build Israel, right? That's something that happens with the coming of the Messiah for them. Meaning, not when a bourgeois class with exterminationist goals decides to move to a place, right? And transfers people from Brooklyn and Poland. I don't know, the hubris that it must take for someone to claim they're building Israel when they're a believer of that religion. I don't know, man. It's been mind-boggling to me. And it's like it creates this false view of their religion itself, right? While at the same time giving us a false view of history, a false view of their religious stories, like the Wandering Jew, right? So I guess it makes sense that in this sort of reality-free reality they built, that they build up a fake language too, you know? Fake country, fake language, fake stories, fake everything. All constructions of ethno-nationalism. Hebrew was a dead religion. It was a religious language, basically useless in daily life, right? Until Zionist elites pumped millions into inventing new words and forcing it on Jewish communities all over the world. So rather than the language working class Jews had been speaking forever, Yiddish, they created this new artificial reality for themselves and a new language to describe it with. And that sort of brings me, I guess, to the core of what Zionism is, right? It's Jewish supremacy in concrete form, right? The attempt at this. It's weird because you have people who call it white supremacy, you know, and I think they're missing the point. It's sort of more like a liberal half-truth. Zionism ain't about whiteness, right? It's about the belief that the people within this country are God's chosen people and superior to everyone, that they have to keep it free of everyone else, white, black, brown, yellow, red, whoever, right? That's their justification for an ethno-state free of Arabs. And that's how they justify bulldozing homes, sniping children, bombing refugees. Because in their eyes, Palestinians aren't just inferior, right? They're in the way of their mandate. And it may be a made-up mandate, but that's their mandate. And, you know, it really brings me to the major point of anti-Zionism, which is that the Zionist entity exists at the expense of Palestine. This two-state solution that some of the pacifists masquerading as anti-war are trying to push now is ridiculous, because Israel exists at the expense of Palestine. There can only be one Palestine. And that Palestine will be free. We're not objecting. We are on the side of the working class and the side of a free Palestine. So like when that kid at the bottom of my ladder tells me to stay objective, it just seems ridiculous to me. You know, objectivity is a lie that they use to protect empire. We're not neutral. You know, we're not. We stand with Palestine. We stand with Iran. And we'll never, ever apologize for it.
In the morn, the twilight of the reckoning, when the shadows grow across the fields of light, where the tide flows as it a whisper in the wind, there's a sunset won't fade away. Rising from the dust, all the souls are called from the valleys and the mountains. They stand tall. The time has come to face the truth and find the narrow path that's been drawn by faithful light.
The red tide's rolling and revealing the sin. Under the moonlight, the judgment begins. Rise from the ashes, let redemption unfurl. It's the end of the line in this broken world. On Judgment Day we see the light, a golden path shining bright.
Country ways, your country ways. Rise, comrade, on your gate. No time to waste, no time to
gate, your country waits. Rise, comrade, or your fate will they be forged by what you make?
Rise, brother, don't be late. Our country waits, your country waits. Rise, comrade, on your gates. No time to waste, your country waits.
Whoop. What are we doing here? So apparently Twitch didn't like me writing that Zionism is evil as the title.
Oh wow. Stream got flagged and removed.
Yeah, it's gone.
Wow.
That's all right. We don't have many viewers coming from Twitch anyway.
Those
It's
videos
fine.
are awesome, man. The new intro, that video, Jesus Motorcycle is some serious talent.
Absolutely. So thank you so much to Jesus Motorcycle for that new intro. It's phenomenal. Even though it has me in it, which is, hard to make something phenomenal with me, I guess.
The whole thing is awesome.
Welcome to Noah's show, everybody. It's been quite a week, quite a weekend.
Quite a decade we've had this weekend.
No kidding. No kidding, brother. I need to adjust everything. I feel like my whole setup's off here.
Yeah, I think so. I think Amazon bought Twitch some years ago, or at least they're affiliated.
Yeah, that would make sense. I honestly, I don't know. I hate Twitch anyway.
Yeah, the fact that it requires you to log on every single time you want to watch it just seems like over encumbering. I don't know.
It's also sort of a den of weird to me.
That's also true.
You know?
I just had some things to say about your rant. The point about objectivity is incredibly pertinent, especially with regard to these Western leftists, because it's so often that I hear people shouting about authoritarianism or propaganda as if these are neutral terms and not reflections of the reality in which they're coming out of. And objectivity, as you said, in the eyes of many, is the reflection of their false reality. I mean, the false realism of the institutions they interact with more than anything else.
Yeah, it's an illusion, right? It's an ideological conceit, I guess. If you believe yourself objective, you're more ideological than anyone else usually. You just aren't aware of your own particularity, right? And this is why Marxism is so good at letting us think clearly, because it helps us understand that there's no possible way to be objective. Now, we can be scientific, we can be self-critical, etc. But at the end of the day, you're on a side whether you know it or not. And this is why they get mad at me all the time, the anti-communists on social media, when I call them anti-communists. They're like, bro, I handed out newspapers or leaflets. I'm not an anti-communist. I'm like, look, I'm not interested in your nuanced critiques.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in your pretense at just being objective and doing call outs, man. No, I'm interested in where you exist in reality in relation to communism itself. And if you're in America and all you're doing is whining and lying about the Communist Party, guess what? You're an anti-communist. I don't know what else to tell you at that point. If you can't understand that you are what your actions lead to, this whole pattern of interrelated subjective and objective features, conscious and subconscious, etc., then you're a fucking moron. I don't know how many times I have to explain this to people who pretend to know about Marxism. If you know about Marxism, you understand that where you see yourself is not necessarily the material reality. If I call myself a fucking piece of pizza, it doesn't make it so. I could believe real hard that I'm pizza, but it doesn't make it so.
Yeah, and they're always disguised as like principled critiques. Because like I had a back and forth with some woman under this post about the Chinese socialist system and their successes, and she made some random comment about there still being so many people in extreme poverty in China. And then when I refuted that by saying even like Western sources like the World Bank refute what she's saying, she's like, this is why no one likes socialists, because you guys can't just be objective. It's like, okay, like, well, first you're straight up lying, and as you said, there's no true objectivity. And to that point, like this stuff extends to like labor Zionism. Regardless of how you want to paint the situation, you're still a Zionist. Like
No
trying to
kidding.
convince us that the problem stops and ends with Netanyahu is again part of the problem. It's not real. This is not real life.
Hold on. Slumbering Colossus, is this true? We're getting ads on our live streams now?
I've never heard of that.
I haven't either. That's crazy. Big if true, right?
And they keep sliding back stuff like YouTube Premium. They every single year they try to get you to pay more for less. It's like these are their subscription models. Like even Hulu, they introduced like a paid subscription with ads. Like you can't even subscribe to these streaming services without getting ads, without being limited to one household. It's like
Oh. Dude,
it's
and
all,
the worst is like they have like different like price tiers for like you could have one for short ads and another for no ads. What a racket, man.
insane.
Especially because like the actual labor going into creating their platforms is not very much. I
Yeah.
mean, there is some, obviously, they're big corporations, but it's not like a steel mill
Yeah.
or a steel industry rather, you know?
Well, I mean, think about it this way. Regardless of what you think about someone like Elon, he went in and fired a bunch of people working at X, and effectively nothing changed. We didn't even realize. We didn't notice.
Yeah.
Like, especially with automation. I mean, that's only going to be felt even harder.
I can't wait until like all these jobs are automated and done with AI. I mean, where do we go? Like, that's an exciting thing about the future, you know?
Yeah,
But
I'm so sick of leftists and their reactionary positions against AI art, man. Like, even the ones who just say it looks bad, yeah, like it's new. If that's your critique that it just looks bad, then wait a couple years. I don't know. Like your
or
problem is an extra finger on an AI generated image.
right, or look at Jesus motorcycles stuff instead of
Yep,
some amateur. It's a
exactly.
tool. It's a tool like Photoshop is a tool, like a paintbrush is a tool. They're all tools to produce art. And what I really think it is they're sort of like hipsters who think they're special for being able to do art and they don't like art
Yeah.
being available to the people.
Mhm.
And to them, I have this to say.
Yeah,
Uh,
imagine if the party had to sequester a bunch of artists or even train up and use a ton of resources to generate this stuff that we can do for free and for 1/10 of the time that it takes. Like, I don't know. It's just objectively trying to shoot ourselves in the foot by condemning AI art. It's only
yeah.
going to bridge the gap in resources between us and the forces we're fighting against.
Look, AI is a 21st century version of the steam engine. I'm gonna say it. One of the reasons I haven't released my reproletarianization book yet is because when AI started getting this advanced, I realized I needed to rewrite it again.
Yeah.
And I'm on my 14th rewrite now because things are happening at such a rapid pace that it's hard to keep up. Like at first, it was just about financialization, and then it has to change into financialization and technology and the death of the middle class. And it's just like society needs to give me a minute and let me finish this book.
Yeah. I mean, also correct me if I'm wrong in my analysis here, but it's like it's almost like they're Luddites in the sense that like they're against the technology rather than what it's being used for and what it's doing. And like the reflection of the state interests and what's going on. Like AI is going to be used in this context to get rid of their jobs. It's not an
Yeah.
objective reality of AI. Like
Yeah.
the history moves forward. Technology is going to advance whether they like it or not.
You
So
can
we can
try to
either use
smash the
it and get
computers
good at
if
it,
you
or
want.
yeah.
Um, just to make you like AI art because you're lazy. Um, dude, do you know how long the new starting soon loop for this show took? How much work goes into a good product? No, of course you don't. You're going on dogmas and half truths and silliness. I like AI in general because it's a it's the beginning of what I see as a whole new mode of production. AI art is a separate thing. It's just an advanced tool that democratizes art. I don't have to go to art school for 4 years. I don't have to spend free time I don't have learning how to draw X or Y. I can put prompts into an AI and take the idea in my head and put it on the screen. Um, and that's all using a pen is. I mean, I can try to draw a wizard. You guys want to see me draw a wizard? I doodle all the time uh when we're like live streaming because I'm writing notes to myself too, right? And I often draw wizards because they're evil and they're never gonna fool me, right? Um, but yeah, here, check it out. We got a wizard and he's screaming here. And he's got a little magic wand, right? And some feet. And here's his little magic stick. Kaboomy! See, I drew a wizard, right?
I think you've convinced me we don't need AI anymore. We'll just get you
Yeah,
to draw
I could
everything.
just do that and we
Yeah.
don't need AI art. I mean, everybody wants, my wizard drawings. I could probably sell that for like at least 20,000.
Yeah, and it's crazy because the implication when these people say this as well is like our media team is just lazy and is doing nothing. But like people are very hard at work. They're already maximizing the time that they're able to allot. Like without
Mhm.
AI art, without these tools, we would just be getting out less. It's
Yeah,
not like we're sitting and doing nothing when we can be working. We're working the
no
whole time. We're
kidding.
just using AI. It's just a
It's
tool.
Mike Davis makes a really good point here, or reminded me of a good point. A hammer can kill or build a house for the homeless. Which one it does depends on whose hands it's in. Um, that reminded me, like that would be like me setting aside a nail gun because it's not real hammering nails. Like I'm lazy for using a nail gun to put trim up. No, it just makes the job better and easier, and I can do it more efficiently. Stop being such a nerd. I don't know. Anyway, um, so tonight, I'm gonna change the topic abruptly. By the way, um, tonight we were supposed to have a very good friend of the Institute and the Communist Party, Dan Cohen, on. Unfortunately, about 3 minutes before we went live, he got held up with something. It was a personal thing. So he may not be able to make it. He said there's still a chance. And if he does, he'll be here. So let's cross our fingers. But as of right now, we will um, operate on the assumption that unfortunately Dan's not going to make it tonight. And we'll go over all of that stuff with him at a later date.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I wanted to announce that, by the way. Yeah, Doug's welcome to come anytime he wants.
So
If you got his Telegram, hit him up. He's welcome to come on right now. I don't care. We're not doing much. So, okay. I don't want to talk about AI all night because that's like a whole thing. And we really did just have an historic weekend, you know.
Hmm.
Um, I think. I mean, it's like I said, for the first time in our since any of us can really remember, Like the Zionists are getting their comeuppance. And I don't want to say, like war is good, but that this war against Zionism is just, and there's a difference between a just and an unjust war. I think a lot of the time, the sort of propagandists of the ruling class will pick a point in history that makes them look like the victim and then tell the story from that point. Like you see all the Zionists like crying outside of their stolen homes that they're living in, right? That used to belong to someone else. Like, oh, we're such victims, when this is in retaliation to the Zionists attacking Iran completely without provocation. Completely without provocation. They used, they might be able to build a nuclear bomb at some point as their justification. And it's wild to think about that, man.
Which they've said for the last 40 years, by the way.
Right.
They're weeks away, they're months away. And it's crazy too, because I saw a video from Eddie, who said it's actually turning the tide of opinion amongst like Iranian Americans as well. Like back in the day, he would make videos talking about the situation in general, and he would just get like pro-monarchist Western Iranians in his comments spouting propaganda. But it seems like the tide has been changed on that front as well. Like everyone's sort of united now against the Zionist cause.
Yeah, and this is like unsubstantiated right now, but it seems kind of obvious to me that one of the goals of their strikes was to take out effective political leadership that was with the revolution, that was unwilling to compromise with their genocidal plans, that would not sell their country out. And they wanted to, the people they call the hardliners, which are really just, regular Iranians, I guess. I don't know, but I don't. You guys have seen the videos. How did you feel over this weekend? I mean, it's an interesting feeling to be to like get hope in this era. Like multiple missile sites hit in Tel Aviv alone, right? Like Tel Aviv has a lot of arms there. They had like a sensitive strategic building, really, that got blown to pieces, along with some residential towers. A power station in Haifa got struck by the hypersonics. I mean, like infrastructure, like energy infrastructure, right? Chemical production, like all kinds of strategic targets. And what was it that Khamenei said? I'm going to mispronounce his name. Khamenei said about when they would stop. I mean, I'm not even listing all of these, by the way, but he said something like he was going to make their lives miserable. Do you remember what he said?
No, not off the top of my head.
Okay.
But I was just gonna say that like I almost didn't feel like they had it in them after all these political assassinations, like after the Raisi assassination. I didn't think that, I'll mispronounce his name as well, but Pezeshkian. I didn't. I thought that the Israelis had systematically tried to liberalize the leadership and cripple them from being able to take any actions like this. But yeah, the Khamenei, it seems like he's really serious about this, and it remains to be seen.
It does, and good for him, man. Someone needed to stand up for them. And I was sort of like quietly watching and hoping they would fight back, because remember last time they didn't.
Yeah.
There was no response last time, and it was sort of devastating. And I was wondering, and I think we all were wondering whether there was enough political will there to do that. But as we see, the entire world is rallying around Iran right now.
Mm-hmm.
The entire world. And that's sort of what I was thinking as they were getting hit by the Zionists. Like, stand up and everyone will stand with you. I mean, every American patriot stands with Iran right now.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone who doesn't want their tax dollars going to fund this Iron Dome, which turned out to be more like a paper dome, right? And the extermination of an entire people. Everyone who doesn't want that stands with Iran here in America. And across the world, it's even more. For the first time in American history, more people are anti-Zionist than pro-Zionist. You know, and it's because of how the Zionists themselves act. They have no one to blame but themselves. If they weren't monsters, people would be okay with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is why people are saying that there's going to be a potential false flag, because in the court of public opinion, Israel has lost the battle so badly. Like, not even for the sake of any moral arguments, but many Republicans are sick and tired of this crap. Like, it had already been the case with Ukraine, but now there's fracture even amongst the MAGA base with respect to Israel. And I saw a comment. Yeah, here the major thing that's occurred is that it's shattered this sort of sense, this aura of invincibility, right? Like, it's going to traumatize a generation of Israelis who'd bought into the false realism that they were impenetrable and that they would never be able to be attacked in this manner. But clearly, that illusion's been shattered.
Oh, 100%. That was part of why they were so brazen attacking the people around them all the time, because they'd built up this myth that they had like this amazing intelligence network and military, etc., and that the US would always come to their aid. But here we are, right?
Yeah. And so many propagandists like to point to like the pager attack and stuff like that as a display of strength, as an indication of how strong they are. But it's almost the opposite, right? Like, it's a bit of an admission that they can't sustain something like a ground invasion for that long. They have to resort to these tactics, which materially don't do much outside of their propagandistic value and to actually piss off the people that you're attacking like this. Like, it's the most cowardly of attacks.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. And, I don't know. I think that largely what allowed, and I don't want to get too like theoretical here, but largely what allowed the government within occupied Palestine to create this sort of false reality around them, including their fake language, including their fake country, their fake house, all of this, right? Was that we were living in an era of completely controlled narratives and what I call unreality, where people's view of what is, because of this total media saturation, right, became sort of filtered only through the media rather than what was in front of their face, which always throughout history affected how people saw the world. And so unrealism became the norm. You got, people who actually believed that kneecapping all of our unions would help out because they were told this by the mass media, right? You got people who genuinely believe that their family struggling is somehow unique to something they've done wrong, because the way the news is reported paints a picture of a city on a hill and everything's fine, the economy's great, right? Like the stupid Hillary Clinton getting elected signs. If Hillary was in office, we'd all be at brunch right now. Like, well, I'm sure you would, but meanwhile, the country's going down the fucking gutter, right?
Yeah, that sign was crazy, by the way.
Yeah. We'll get to this later, but there were signs like that at the the No Kings protest, which is totally grassroots and organic and not funded by NGOs and bourgeois foundations at all, right? But there was a sign like that, but with Kamala Harris's name on it.
Yeah, and to what you were saying before about false realism, I mean, this has been doubly the case after 9/11. I mean, after that, this sort of the agenda has been the dominance and imperialism in the Middle East, and it's infected a whole generation of people to get them to be paranoid about the threat of terrorism.
Yup.
And
And that brings that reminds me of something you said a minute ago about this really driving a wedge into the MAGA base,
mhm,
right? The working class MAGA people and even their influencers, right? You know, the sort of libertarian guy, Dave Smith. I actually kind of like that guy. I disagree with him, obviously, and I think that he has sort of a false consciousness, but he seems like a good guy. And he actually said that, you know, that if what the Zionists say is true, and Trump was never negotiating for peace with Iran in good faith, then he's lost every ounce of support for Trump. And I think a lot of MAGA people are there as well.
mhm.
And this is where we come in, right? Because we know Trump was never going to be the answer to anyone's problems. Whether he was negotiating in good faith or not doesn't really matter.
Mhm.
What matters is, well, I mean, it's either he's lying to all of us or he's weak and Netanyahu basically cucked him and got what he wanted. And that shatters the false view of Trump that people had, that he was this guy that would, you know, walk in there, slam his dick on the table and get his way.
Mhm.
But he could not do that. So either way, the illusions around Trump are shattering, and we need to be there to show people that there is only one answer. If we want to save our country, we need to do it our damn selves,
Mhm.
which means we need to organize our class, not the elites, not rely on some billionaire, not rely on any of these soft-handed people and their nice promises. We need to be a class for ourselves, of ourselves, and by ourselves.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, regardless of his intentions, which one can only stand to reason that they're not good anyway. But all we have is the objective outcome of his actions. And worst case, even if he wanted to do all of this, it's quite clear. And what we have to tell them is there's no fixing it from within the system. He was
Yep.
never going to drain the swamp, if even if he wanted to, which frankly doesn't seem like he wanted to.
I mean, I look, when he was first saying drain the swamp, lock up the Clintons, etc., I was quietly optimistic. I was like, based, right?
Yeah.
But then Rex Tillerson was his pick for Secretary of State, the CEO of Exxon fucking
Yeah.
Mobil.
Yeah.
How is that draining the swamp? You know? And look, I think his struggle against the deep state is real. I think that he doesn't understand society on a concrete level, and at the same time has like a lot of biases that don't pan out to how reality is. So even his struggle against the deep state can only end up going so far. It can only be this personal struggle that's doomed to failure, which means all of these MAGA people are gettable as their illusions get shattered, as this reality asserts itself over the unreality, as the era of unreality ends, right? So remember to tell anybody you're working with that's getting disillusioned to go to acp.us and find out what's really going to save our country. I don't know. I think though that I mean I kind of want to stay on the topic of, like, rather than get sidetracked about Trump and all this, I want to stay on the topic of Iran and anti-Zionism and the fact that, look, we had 2 years of protests after October 7th as the Zionists ramped up their extermination campaign. Years of protests, people going to jail, right? People going out in the streets, and nothing happened. BDS actually helped a little bit, by the way. It did help a little bit, but it wasn't strong enough. What is helping? It's Iran burning Tel Aviv. This is the only language the Zionists speak. It's the only language they speak. People have been asking and begging and demanding, and nothing has changed. Right? What is Iran other than a people organized, disciplined, and effective at what they do? Right? That's all they are. They were a revolution that turned into the state of Iran now. And that's something we should think about, I think. I also want to think about it, sort of really look at it from the Marxist perspective. And Carlos Garrido, obviously one of the other directors of the Institute and one of the other leaders of the Communist Party, recently made a video about why Free Korea, or the DPRK, is supporting Iran, even though Iran's not a communist country, which is something, you know, a lot of like left liberals and people don't understand. They're like, well, why would you support them? They're not communists. And I think Carlos did an awesome job, and this video is blowing up all over the internet right now. So I wanted to watch this and sort of go over it with you guys. Do you want to pull it up, Sebastian?
Yeah, sure. Just before we get to that, I just wanted to, if this is about Dan in the thumbnail, he unfortunately dropped out last minute.
Oh yeah.
We didn't know, but hopefully we'll get him either later on this stream or at a later date.
Good point, Golden Perenni. Our masses have no authority. The protests are basically leftists and liberals begging the state to do what they want, and the state can always just say, go fuck yourself, right? And they do all the time. We had the largest protest demonstration in all of American history after the state killed George Floyd. What changed? What changed? Not a goddamn thing changed, right? Oh, we got a mural of George Floyd. So what? The cops are still murdering folks. I mean, anyway, let's watch this.
Let me know if you hear the audio.
Respond to any threat
Do you
against
hear it through the
Iran,
stream?
warn the mercenaries of global imperialism. Some people might
Yeah,
ask,
restart it though, brother.
country come out in
Yeah.
support of
But you hear it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because I just don't hear it on my end.
Turn the volume up.
against Iran. We warn the Kim Jong-un just said that we will respond to any threat against Iran. We warn the mercenaries of global imperialism. Some people might ask, why would a communist country come out in support of Iran, which is not a communist country? And the answer to that is in Lenin's book on imperialism, which argues that capitalism has developed to the stage of imperialism. This means that now there's a whole new dimension of the class struggle that manifests itself between countries struggling against imperialism and imperialist countries. And while this can take many different forms, what is common is the struggle for sovereignty against imperialist encroachment. And that is why a communist state like the DPRK or Cuba or Venezuela, etc., support Iran's struggle against Zionist and U.S. imperialism. It's because imperialism makes the class struggle global, and there's two sides that you can possibly take. Either you're with the forces of resistance to imperialism, or you're with the side of imperialism. As the great American historian Howard Zinn once said, you cannot be neutral on a moving train. Within the country, this means that you can't be neutral in the struggle between the working class and the capitalist class. Globally, this means that you can't be neutral neutral in the struggle of anti-imperialism versus imperialism. This is why it makes complete sense for all socialists and communists to support Iran. Iran is at the front lines of the struggle against Zionism, which is the bulwark of U.S. imperialism in the Middle East. After facing an unjust and unprovoked attack from the white and blue country, now it is retaliating with a level of strength that the white and blue country hasn't seen in decades. Whether you like it or not, this is the form that the anti-imperialist struggle takes. And you can either support it and be on the right side of that split, or you can condemn it because it doesn't look like the pure struggle that you have in your head. This would be operating under what I've called the purity fetish in a lot of my writings. So stand on the right side of history. Stand with the forces fighting back against imperialism. Stand on the side that Comrade Kim has taken.
All struggle is class struggle.
And it absolutely is about the purity fetish, right? Because so many people don't support these countries specifically on the basis that they're not socialists or they're not good enough, or maybe even because of some social policies they have there. But like, it's a failure to recognize what the primary contradiction is, the primary global contradiction, and the largest fetter to these countries having their own self-determination and perhaps their own path to socialism. This is Western hegemony, NATO, imperialism. And, you know, to be against these countries that are fighting against the primary contradiction on some moralistic basis or on some basis of purity is fighting on the side of imperialism, materially.
Yeah, I think, look, capitalism itself has become a global integrated system. Our political institutions haven't caught up to our mode of production yet. They're in contradiction with each other, right? And, you know, that'll take a while for it to happen. But this means that imperialism itself is a global phenomenon, right? And is fought on a global scale. The class struggle isn't based in some predetermined form. It isn't just, you know, unions fighting on a shop floor. It's anything that weakens the current ruling class and at the same time, by definition, strengthens the current progressive class, right? And so we used to have a slogan before this escalation that was, when Palestine wins, we win. Because that's true, right? The forces of reaction and the global financialized capitalist system are centered within the you know, the US, Israel, and Germany and the EU, etc. And so those who are fighting against them are necessarily waging the class struggle. It's just a form that people can't really see at first glance because it's not right in their faces, obviously apparent to them. This is why a Marxist understanding of form and content, of universal in particular, really helps us understand these things. That for Marxism, the universal is not just that which is not particular, right? It's that which arises in many particular forms, thus proving its universality through its particularity, right? Are you guys keeping up with that? It's only through that particular that it becomes universal, and only the universal through the particular. It's both at the same time, right? And this is just like the Black Freedom Movement in the US, a particular historically determined form of the class struggle, right? The Iranians haven't gotten into this situation because they made a decision, right? They're materially opposed to the interests of finance capital, which is why the finance capitalists and the nations that are sort of embodying within this process are materially opposed to them, have already engaged in struggle against them. Now, if we view things that way, if we use their development as a premise, and the actual material place they are within the class struggle. We can see the progressive nature of Iran and why, Comrade Kim, if I can use an honorific, supports them without question. Why communist parties all over the world do, and why it's only frauds, renegades, and infiltrated liberal groups masquerading as communists who will call them a theocracy and say they're bad and mention all of the sort of dents in their shield of purity that they've waged around them, that or built around them, that Iran has committed, because they're not viewing the world through Marxism. Like Carlos says in the video, they're viewing it through the purity fetish. They think that struggle must happen in this idealized form the way they want it to. But class struggle is objective. It is already happening around us. Whether you like how it happens or not, you're with the workers or you're with the enemy of the workers. There ain't no third side there. You can't say, like the Trots try to do, neither Beijing nor Washington. No, if you say that, you're picking fucking Washington. Jesus Christ. How many times do I have to tell these morons that what they're saying materially aids the ruling class? It's like when they were talking about the Uyghur genocide, right? That didn't actually exist. All of the leftists who came out of the woodwork that thought then was the time for their nuanced critique of China, right? Oh, Jesus Christ, man. It's like, how do you not use the real world as your fucking basis for analysis? How are you always that in your own head? Actually, well, it would more be in your own head while your own head is shoved way up your own ass, right? Like, how can people just not see out to the world around them? It fucking bothers me, man.
Yeah. And you made a great point earlier about like the efficacy of like these protest movements, and like, they're with good intentions, right? But then these people stand and have principled critiques of actual resistance movements that are actually on the ground doing shit. And it's like, come on, man, really? Like, you're gonna have now is not the time for these principled critiques against the only people who are actually standing up for Israel.
No kidding, brother. It's all it does is put them on the side of the Zionists, right? It's sort of like all the moron Fuentes Groiper people, when they promote anti-Semitism, they're so stupid they can't see that they've just sided with the Zionists, that they're doing exactly what the Zionists want. They're advancing the Zionist side of this struggle. And they're too fucking stupid to understand that that's how the real world works. It's not about their fifis and how they want to look at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. So we're about to make our space, guys. What do you think? You think anyone is going to have the guts to sort of try to debate or argue? Because I found that they usually don't.
This is crazy, by the way. Maybe we can look into this or something, but wow.
What's that?
A comrade down in the comments said there have been 5 ads on the live stream so far, which is,
whoa, that's wild, man. I don't know anything about that. I'll have to look into it after we're done with the stream tonight. All right. So I just started our space for the night. Everybody like pile on in there. I always forget how to do all this stuff, like do the links and blah blah blah. So give me a sec. There it is. Okay. We'll copy this link, right? And we'll do some stuff with it.
all right, I see. I'm in the space now.
Okay. I'll make you the co-host so you can handle all that stuff.
You want me to make the announcement on the Discord?
Yeah, do it up, brother. Thank you. All right. Let's see here. And we're gonna share our screen. We're gonna turn my mic on in here because that's always a good thing, right? People hearing me, I guess. Well, maybe that's not a good thing for most people. I don't know. All right, where am I? Sorry, I just completely spaced.
Let me mute myself on the stream so I don't double up.
Yeah, you better.
Are you sharing your screen or should I with the space?
No, I can do it, I guess. Yeah, that's what I was gonna do. I was going to share my screen. All right, let's do that. I hope Dan can end up joining us. I think that would be really cool. But at this point, I think maybe it's probably a better idea to just have him on and have a discussion with him at a later date, you know. All right, everybody boost the stream, the space, get it out there. Man, I'm out of coffee. This ain't good. Oh wait, I have a little bit left.
Yeah, an energy drink recently too. I've been fucking crashing.
Oh, that's no good. Yeah, I started drinking Celsius before I work out. It really
that's
helps.
what I've been drinking. Yeah,
and they're better for you than other energy drinks, you know.
Oh, really? That's good. Yeah. There's just been a 2 for $4 deal at CVS, so I've just been taking advantage of that.
I feel you on that one. All right. If anyone has a question, thinks if they're like some anti-communist or even an anti-communist who thinks they're a communist and they want to try to debate me, come right up, request, and we'll bring you up. We'll hear you out. I may or may not make fun of you. No, I'm just kidding. I won't. I'm a nice guy. I promise.
It seems like this Ben guy in the comments has something to discuss if he wants to join. Ben Chesterman. Also, I'm going to mute myself on the StreamYard. Let me know if you can still hear me.
I can still hear you because I have, I don't know, super hearing. No, I have my thing set up correctly. That's why. Not super hearing. You guys thought I had superpowers? Nope. Well, if you call working like 11-hour days and then being exhausted when I get home a superpower, I guess that's a thing. I don't know what I'm talking about. All right. I can't. Is this like the first space ever where nobody is going to request?
I'm going to unmute myself.
Oh, we got somebody. All right. Oh, it's our buddy from the Piers. What's up, man? I hit accept, so you gotta
hey,
unmute
welcome,
yourself.
Brother. Hey, Noah, how you doing?
Good. How you doing, brother?
I'm alright. Listen, I just got a question real quick.
Sure. What's up?
So, my friend tagged me in a post. He says CSX has reached an agreement with their 3,400 employees and, engineers, stuff like that. And I told them, well, yeah, it's easy for them to do it because they have one employer. And the truckers have approximately, at the Port of New York and New Jersey, 6,900. So, is it possible, do you think, in your opinion? I don't know how knowledgeable you are about the NLRB and all that stuff, but do you think that it's possible to convince the NLRB that besides there being 6,900 employers, can we also reduce it to just one if we convince the NLRB that the ports are the main employer in this whole scheme of things?
I don't. So that's a really good question. I don't know enough of the details on how the port company's ownership works. I assume it's sort of like big parent companies own a million little ones, right? Because that's the way like Amazon gets around a lot of labor laws. I assume it's similar to that.
Yeah, think of it like this. Like in Maine, for example, a lot of these companies, a lot of these drivers who haul logs, wood out of the forest in Maine, they all work for different companies, but technically they all have one employer because they all come from one forest. So maybe they could also reduce the amount of elections up there if they could just say, listen, this one forestry company is the main employer of all these other companies out here.
Mm.
So we're trying to figure out a way maybe we could just reduce the amount of elections by reducing the amount of employers in the game. You know what I'm saying?
Frankly, I'm almost always for reducing the amount of employers. Um, Mostly because like a single one is just one easier to deal with, right? Like you're saying. Um, but two, as things it's like, let's be real, monopoly is more efficient. Rather than having a million intermediaries in big industries like transportation, frankly, I'm for state ownership eventually anyway, and having the state have a monopoly on it. But in the meantime, it really depends on the situation. I wish I knew more details on the ownership structures of those companies to give you something solid. I would have to look into it. I know Kyle knows all about that stuff. I've talked to him in brief about it before, but he is traveling on party work right now. Otherwise, I'd text him and get him to come on here. So like, I wish I had a better answer for you, brother. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. You know, sometimes just saying I don't know is the most appropriate answer that you could give somebody. One thing that I hate is when people just make shit up. I
Dude,
know they're
yes.
trying to answer stuff, but
Yeah.
sometimes saying I don't know it's good enough. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks, brother. I think, you know what, that's like it seems like an epidemic right now of people pretending to know about things that they don't. You know how many people like approach me randomly on social media and pretend they're like experts in Marxism and communist history, and like just from like one or two interactions I can tell that they have no idea what they're talking about. Like they can't tell a dialectic from a diuretic, but here they're telling me that like they grew up in the Soviet Union and got a doctorate in Marxism, Leninism, and it's like they don't understand the very basics. You know what I mean? Uh, I don't know why people think that people get fooled by that kind of thing, right? As communists, I think we always need to be honest about what we know and don't know. Like you just said, you know, like there's honor in just saying, you know, I don't know enough about that. At least to me, I think that's the right thing to do.
Definitely.
Um,
Thanks for joining us, brother.
yeah, for
Um,
real, it's good to talk to you.
and there's someone in the chat, Ben Chesterman. I'm not exactly sure what his argument is, but brother, hop in this space and we'd love to have a discussion with you.
What is he saying? I'm not paying any attention to the chat. It's going way too quick for me.
There's just been a bunch of comments from him, like
Oh,
this.
I can't read that. I have my screen real small. Here, hold on. There we go. Middle class and upper class is the capitalism class. I don't know. Okay.
He's just making a bunch of random comments. I'm not sure what his central argument is, but if he'd join, we can have a discussion with him on the space.
Okay. So middle classes are an interesting thing. The bourgeois class itself began as a middle class. In fact, it was sort of between the toiling masses, the and the feudal lords, right? And as it went over time, it overtook the feudal lords. But in the U.S. and the West in general, as financialization plays out, because of, I mean, there's a bunch of factors, and I go over these in my book, actually, the Reproletarianization book. A middle class rises up out of the proletariat for the first time in history, right? And this is a big deal. This had never happened before, right? It's usually some older form of production bringing, and you guys don't care about the burgers and all that, but this changes class relations in the US, right? When we have people who are actual proletarians who are somehow able to own more than just their labor power to sell as a commodity to reproduce their existence, right? They gain the ability to buy houses. They gain the ability to save some money and put their kids through school. Now they're still wage laborers. They're still, creating surplus value, being exploited, all of that. But something has changed. And the major factor here was the class struggle. These things weren't just given to the working class, they were stripped from the ruling class, purchased in people's lives, right? That was the currency we had to use. People died for these. And I think that the sort of financialization process continuing on as I forget what I was going to say. As this process plays out, the financialization process continues on, and the MCM circuit keeps going, the MM circuit keeps going. Within finance, this phenomenon I remember now, as the class struggle begins shifting the other direction, begins decay, right? And we get to where I call a nodal point in 2008 with the financial crisis of the beginning of reproletarianization. This middle class really being destroyed. I mean, last year, according to Forbes, 78% of Americans were struggling paycheck to paycheck. Over 90% of us own nothing or less than nothing, right? Meaning debt. And this is because even our homes were built on debt, right? In 71, our money changes into debt. And that's a whole nother bag of bananas. But this phenomenon of middle class and ownership based on this debt is ending. So saying that the middle class is like the capitalist class is really a misnomer. It's not because it owns something is a misowner. So misnomer. So like the reason we call the petty bourgeois class a middle class is because it was faltering. It was rising up or falling down. It was unstable. And this is what the last few decades show us. Our unique middle classes, due to our unique conditions, ended up the same way. I don't know. I hope that answers his question. Why don't you take over for a minute, Sebastian? I'll be right back.
Sure, yeah. Just if you're muting yourself to space, I don't know if it'll still convey. Oh yeah, I can talk to myself, so it's fine. Um, did you guys see that the tweet that the IDF put out recently? Hold on, let me see if I can cast it. Duh. I don't know if you guys saw this. I don't know if it was AI generated or what, but the IDF recently put out a post about Iran, and they accidentally included a map that had Kashmir as part of Pakistan, and Israel's typical greatest offenders, a lot of the Indian Zionists, the Hindutva nationalists, they got up in arms in the comments. So under literally every single reply, the IDF had to copy and paste the same message to them apologizing. Uh,
No, I love. They turned on him like that,
yeah,
like that. I loved it.
20,000 likes. Indian right wing community. I don't know. It's just so hilarious. Yeah, we can go
Oh
back to the
man.
space.
Okay. So what were you talking about? I don't. Sorry, I had to go out and take a phone call.
No, I was just showing them that tweet. Just filling the space and time.
I I don't know.
Do you have any opinions on Kashmir? Someone's asking.
On Kashmir, not I don't know enough about it. I know India is sort of a hole in my knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's like I know quite a bit about China these days. The Soviet Union, but it's like there's so much to learn all the time that it's just like I have random geographic locations and I'm just like, huh?
Yeah. I tried to look into it a little bit. I know that Pakistan and India obviously have different claims, but the difference is that India claims the entirety of the region, whereas Pakistan recognizes China's territorial claim.
Mm,
And China obviously is, an ally of Pakistan. They provide, weapons and stuff. I think from what I looked into, there's a lot of similarities between how India operates in the region and Zionism and how Israel operates with respect to like the West Bank. It's a heavily militarized area. A lot of like Muslim people are targeted specifically because of their identity. But yeah, I don't know.
whoa,
I don't know much beyond that. It's a contentious issue.
whoa, Joey. By the way, thanks for the 10, brother. This must have just happened. The Truth Social post says we might be entering World War III as we speak. The U.S. seems to be moving a bunch of military assets. Yeah, they're moving like carriers and stuff. Now that could be refueling stuff like that, but time will tell. But what I'm interested in is Trump put out a Truth Social post basically implying that he is giving Iran one last deal. Now, it's such a toss up on where he actually is with this. Like, does he actually want to negotiate peace? Because who we should be talking about is the Zionists. But we have people requesting. Why don't you pull up this
Yeah,
Michael
sure.
guy?
Mo 1917 also had this to add.
Kashmir had special status in the Indian Constitution. They were semi-autonomous, pretty much, but India removed that special status, brought in troops. Oh man, it caused a media blackout for months. I'm gonna have to look into that. Thank you, Mo. He says that it's the
Money
battleground of
Truth.
imperialism now. That's how he sees it.
Money Truth. I accepted your request if you'd like to pull up and join us.
Yeah, what's up?
Oh no, Orange. Sorry,
can you hear me?
Bushes grow fruit.
Yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
All right, good. I've come here before, I think.
Yeah, what's up, man?
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about Sudan, but I also want to ask about like natural dialectics.
Okay, like the dialectics of nature kind of deal.
Yeah.
Okay. It's been a
Yeah.
minute since I've read that. But
Yeah.
it really, really helped me when I first made my way through it.
Yeah.
So what's up?
Yeah.
What's the question?
With natural dialectics, it's how is it not essentially applying a metaphysics to nature? Because like if you read like Mao or Stalin or so on, they contrast it with metaphysics, which they say is one-sided and
Mhm.
tries to fit reality into a very specific formulaic thing.
Okay.
How does dialectics not do that
Yeah.
by having these laws of the dialectic?
How is it not sort of how is it that Engels can say in the last instance nature works dialectically and not metaphysically, right?
Yeah.
And it's in the relation between thought and being, right? Like the dialectic is all within our heads. It is,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But everything within our heads is built and put there and developed into it, right?
Mhm.
So when he and I mean he talks about the laws of the dialectic, yes, but this is
Mhm.
understanding process already as it's delivered to us as we concretize the notion. So it's like,
Mhm.
you know how when Marx talks about how he found Hegel standing on his head, right?
Mhm.
Hegel's impetus isn't like, and Marx like really kind of goes after him. He says that he even turns the idea into the demiurge of reality itself, which
Mhm.
Hegel doesn't actually really do. It's more the logic of Hegel necessitates that conclusion. But
Yeah.
when he sort of pulls backward and says that Hegel sort of begins in something already formed rather than beginning at the beginning,
Mhm.
he's saying that beginning is always and must be by the fact that material exists as us material,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And so for Engels, the law of the dialectic is sort of observed within us as we're concretizing our notion of the dialectic itself. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah, so it's less that nature, like in abstract, is dialectical, and it's more that our understand, like nature as it exists for us, is dialectical in our consciousness.
Right. But our consciousness must at the same time concretely reflect that as dialectical as proven by the progress of history itself, by the
Mhm.
progress of humanity and nature itself, right?
Yeah.
That I think Hegel said that
Mhm.
nature was always abstract, right?
Yeah.
It was static because and therefore abstract. It was only you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But for Engels, this gives rise to humanity, and they're already in a dialectical relationship. So it's
Mhm.
less that the dialectic is sort of a metaphysics forced on nature, but more that
Mhm.
it gets proven within how it already develops.
Mhm.
And we're sort of retroactively piecing it back together. You know how
Mhm.
he gives the example of I think it's like pepper plant or something,
Like
or
a
barley.
like
It
a
might be
flower or
barley.
a tree is what I
Yeah.
remember. Yeah.
And this is important. Like the reason he does something with many different possible um sorry, I'm bad with words today apparently. He gives
Mhm.
us something with many possible or possibilities and
Mhm.
outcomes
Mhm.
specifically for this reason, because it has
Mhm.
to concretize in real time. It has
Mhm.
to we can see a potential within these things, but until
Mhm.
it's happening, it isn't made concrete for us.
Yeah. Um, so to clarify, the dialectic, it's to do with our understanding of the history of development rather than and how it affect like how it exists for us in the moment more than
Precisely, yeah.
anything.
That we can
Okay.
only understand it in the moment because we understand it in history as it's sort of revealed to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And vice
Um
versa, obviously, right? Like
yeah.
you have
Yeah.
to finish before you can understand the beginning fully. Otherwise, you
Yeah.
have an abstract view, a one-sided view, or a partial view.
Yeah. Um and then I want to get to Sudan. I have one like I guess big issue
Sure, let's hear it.
after Sudan
Um,
though
we
because
we have like a few other people requesting, so it's got to
yeah.
be quick. That's all.
Yeah, okay, so well, I'll start with the issue then. My issue is that, like, a lot of the time when at least when I tune into either your stream or Hawes's stream or whatever, a lot of it's news reacting, like, reacting to recent news. But my issue is that, like, certain issues are, ignored and certain issues are
Mm,
prioritized, and this doesn't have it and if I'm, like, a Marxist and I wanna put out Marxist news, I should prioritize issues based off of what actually has meaning for a Marxist analysis But from what I'm seeing, it seems that there's a lot of just reacting to what's on the news rather than net justifying what is being reacted to with typical Marxist analysis. Like for example, I never hear anything about like there's a war right on China's border that a ton of countries are involved in, and I never hear anything about it. And it's Myanmar, you know?
Yeah, it's. I mean, a lot of it is prioritization, right?
Yeah,
You can't stream 24/7. You can't react to everything. So a lot of stuff falls in order to prioritize something deemed necessary.
yeah,
For me, it's generally what I believe, because you have to sort of understand how social media and the internet works and where you are at. Like I'm on a different level of the internet than say Jackson or even
hmm
Eddie or even Haas, right? So
hmm
like I understand my place as someone who can take that and
hmm
give a sort of like every man's view of the
hmm
Marxist analysis of a given thing. Now you
hmm
can't do that for things that people don't know a lot about, right?
yeah,
So I look at for how we decide on our show, and other people are different. We
hmm
look at what's like popular that week or the week before.
hmm
Like we look at numbers of different websites and
hmm
what news stories get the most clicks, that kind of stuff.
hmm
So like that's where I am. Now, other people who are, go deeper in, talk about a lot more stuff. But
hmm
that's just me. I can't speak for
yeah,
anyone else.
yeah. But don't you think it presents a problem if, for example, a certain issue like again Myanmar, there's not a lot of like they block coverage of what's going on over there. Um, don't you think that presents a problem if a certain issue, which is very important for a Marxist, is being actively blocked, so it's stopped from being popular to talk about?
Um, yeah, well, I mean, I guess it would depend on if we agree on whether that's the most important thing to
Mhm.
discuss in our limited time or not. And I honestly,
Yeah,
I don't know enough about it to really give a concrete answer.
yeah,
Maybe that's because of this information block you mentioned, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
who knows? But yeah, that's like not even on my radar at the moment.
yeah,
Have you
yeah,
heard anything about this, Sebastian?
No, no, I haven't either. I mean, I've
Yeah,
heard that there's something going on, but yeah, as he said, there's not much in terms
yeah,
of mainstream media coverage.
yeah.
yeah, it's right again, it's right like Myanmar borders China. It's right on
Mhm.
China's southern border. And it's I mean, you can look up a map, if you want, but it's a very complicated war, you know? And I saw something recently that, like, a ton of countries are involved, like, Pakistan is involved, the UAE is involved, China's obviously involved because it's right next to them,
Interesting.
and so
I'm
on.
gonna have to I'm gonna
So,
have to look
yeah.
into it, and hopefully we'll talk about it next week. That's got to be
Yeah.
because we don't have much time. We got to get to some other people.
Yeah, yeah, no
Thanks
worries.
for joining us,
Yeah,
brother. Hopefully, we'll have you in another space soon.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Who do
I'll
we
see.
got next, Sebastian?
We have a couple people. Let me just throw up this comment before, though. I think you might be able to respond to it regarding like reproletarianization.
Mm. The working class has become obsolete. Practically invalidates the class war by default. Well, I guess you'd have to prove that the working class has become obsolete, right? Now, we do live in the era of M to M prime circulation. In 2008, speculation became the primary form of accumulation in global capitalism. However, that doesn't mean that the working class is obsolete. Um, Even in parasitic industries producing no value, right? There are still prices and stock signals, etc. I don't know. Let's go on to the next
Yep.
person though.
The next requester is Mike.
All right, Mike, what's up? You gotta unmute yourself. No, I think Mike
I heard
refuses
some
to unmute
background.
himself.
You there, brother?
Oh yeah. Sorry about that. Hit mute by mistake.
Oh,
No
good.
worries.
What's up, Mike?
So two things. Well, one's sort of just like a uh, helpful hint. When I heard you guys mentioning the Kashmir issue, and when India and Pakistan were trading fire a little while back, I got interested in it as well, and I found this decent book. It's a bit on the liberal historian side, but it's got a good, like who, what, where, why, and how.
Mm.
It's called Kashmir at the Crossroads by Sumantra Bose. And it just gives like the general basic information of like what the conflict's been consisting of since the 20th century. But like I said, it's pretty lacks much of a class analysis, but it's good for like standard information for like a door opener, I'd say.
That's good. Like I find that a lot of people sort of do exactly what I hate and only read Marxists, right? Like we should be able to read anybody and filter it through our own Marxism. And I think a lot of it is because before the last few years and sort of the rise of the ACP, what a lot of what passed for Marxism in the West wasn't Marxist, right? So people, rather than being able to analyze capital given the information provided to us by Marx or any bourgeois economists we're reading, they just read Marx and then believe it as dogma, right? Unquestionable commands brought down from on high, like as if Marx came down with the 3 volumes from the mountaintop and said, "Oh, this is capital. Rise against my children," or something silly. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
Yeah.
that ain't how it works. We find value in Marx because he's correct, because his thinking and the system that he elaborates over that entire 3 volumes gives us a concrete way to view how society functions, right? And everything within it. There's a lot more going on in capital than people think, honestly.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, I just wanted to get your guys' question. You kind of alluded to it earlier, Noah, but do you think that Trump knew in advance? I mean, obviously knew in advance of Israel's strikes on Iran, but do you think that there's been like speculation going around that the nuclear talks themselves with Iran were like a ploy to get Iran to lower their guard in order for like a strike to happen and achieve maximum damage? And do you think that would be the case? And if so, do you think the U.S. will take more of a biased view or
Yeah, no, I
position
get
going
you.
forward? Yeah.
Look, the U.S. ruling class has always taken the Zionist side. There's no like mincing words about that. They're going to take the Zionist side. The question is really, in what form does that happen, right? I think that there's no way Trump will be able to sell American boots on the ground to his base after trying to run as the anti-war president. I think a lot of what motivates him is doing something big. Like if you remember, he almost achieved peace with Korea, which would have been huge, right? And I think he genuinely wants peace. I think his negotiating, look, he used, and people don't pick up on this, but he uses the same tactic in every negotiation he ever does. And he writes about it in his fucking book. And people should read it, right? The Art of the Deal. It's called The Big Ask, where you ask for the world or demand this and that and that and act all tough. And then, but that's not actually what you want. You want way less of a version of that, right? Like a mini version of what you're asking for. And that way, people get over their initial shock and are more likely to to agree to your actual terms you want. I think this is how he tried to treat Putin, and Putin laughed at him. I think Khomeini is going to be the same, whether he actually knew or not. I think matters a lot less than how Khomeini is going to respond to his tough guy act now.
Mhm.
However, my inclination, and this has to be speculation here, my
Right.
inclination is that he did not know and instead got played by Netanyahu. And maybe that's kind of wishful thinking on my part, because if he did get played by Netanyahu, that's going to make him kind of angry at Netanyahu.
Mhm.
And with as much of a wild card as he is, or rather was, he's a mini version of the wild card these days. That could lead to something interesting, such as cutting off aid or something crazy. I would love to see a wedge driven between Trump and Netanyahu, and I think that's something we should strive for rhetorically.
Mhm. And the Times of Israel actually put out a report saying that the U.S. helped lull Iran into the belief that there's no attack imminent, and that can go either way as well. That doesn't necessarily mean he knows or he knew, but it could also imply that they just took advantage of him, as Noah said.
Yeah, it could be either one. I wish we had like a more info,
Yeah.
but we're
Mm.
probably never going to know. Unfortunately, not until the American working class takes power and we can release all kinds of intelligence files. All right, we're coming up on time, everybody. But what did you just
Oh,
put up there? Oh, yeah. I mean, good point, Mike. We have a couple more requests. Go ahead and bring the next one up,
yep, yep.
Sebastian.
The next one I saw is Rachel.
You know what's funny, Rachel? Go ahead and unmute yourself. But before you do, I had a couple people bothering me trying to like debate this and that all week, and I'm like, okay, just show up to the space. Guess what? They ain't here. Imagine that. Why is everyone who gibbers on X always terrified of me in actual debate? I don't know. Anyway, go ahead, Rachel.
Hi, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. This is my first time on this space. I've never been here. Lovely to listen to you guys. I didn't understand half the stuff because I think I'm new to this group. I'm not too sure. I saw they had the title there, Zionism is evil. So I just came here. I came here to find out why, because I've been thinking about it. Like, how come Iran leaves their assets so wide open for attacks? I read something just a few hours ago saying that 13 or 15, now that could be made up, nuclear scientists killed off. And I'm thinking, the first time they did that, you think there's an underground bunker somewhere where they can hide their assets, at least, like, but people are waking up the next morning, jumping into their bomb-ridden cars and getting blown up. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Mm.
Like, I see the sophistication in their attacks and all that, but it just doesn't make sense that they leave themselves really wide open. And it doesn't really make me feel confident in their ability to avoid being what's the word, by I mean, they're having the weight of the West come on them. You can't have things like it's just like they're sitting ducks basically in
Mm.
my
Yeah,
first time doing it the first time is one thing, but waking up next day to read the same things over. And I get that they're cracking down on a whole lot of Mossad activities, which I believe should have been going on for years. I'm sorry, you own the freaking land. It's how many million people in the country. These people should not have this kind of confidence. I'm not saying you're able to cover it, but literally, Iran is your country. You're the leader leader, the same way, the same kind of iron fist Netanyahu uses, in Tel Aviv. You can learn some things from your enemies. You can
Yeah.
learn, some things, right? There's things that they do not. They are relentless as shit. Those people, call them all kinds of names, but you will see them coming out, in middle of the night, wherever. They don't care. They go all the time. So I just don't. And just to your point, Midwest, you were saying something about Trump earlier on, which I did not agree with. That, oh, he's the peace. He's never been a peacemaker. In 2018, didn't he rip up the Iran deal back
Okay,
then?
look,
Then
Rachel.
killed killed Suleiman and
Yeah, yeah.
celebrated it.
No,
He
I know what
celebrated
you're
it.
talking about. Let me
Called
let
him a
me interrupt
dog.
you real quick.
Oh, sorry,
No,
sorry.
that's okay. We're very short on time, is all. Um, so regarding Trump, no, what I said was he ran as a peace candidate.
But he
And
never was. He
so
never was.
but well, here's it's sort of tied into that we're also live streaming, right? So before we started the space, we had an entire thing about exiting an era of unreality and a lot of hard truths being sort of dawning on people, and a lot of the people who were maybe optimistic about Trump, seeing him in a different light now as we watch the MAGA base kind of split on this very issue. And I think that this is why a lot of people liked him, is because they believed that he was a peace candidate, that he would actually work towards peace. Now, you and I can say, sure, that wasn't true. I mean, look at this, look at that. But that's what they believed. So when I said, like, he would have to he wouldn't be able to sell that to his base who genuinely are anti-war. That's what I was talking about. It really had less to do with him than anything else. And there's two other points I want to make to you real quick. Regarding Iran and sort of being sitting ducks, I don't think they are. I think that modern warfare is an incredibly complicated animal. But warfare itself is always about doing more damage to your opponent than they can do to you. Now, they use all the same modern techniques as everyone else. I mean, the Zionists hit how many decoy power plants, how many decoy airstrips, that kind of stuff. The other thing, so like it's hard to really draw a line between having the country have to get on with everyday life and knowing that they have this rabid dog of a neighbor who could bomb them at any time. Remember, this attack came with no provocation whatsoever. So there's like a few things you got to juggle there and think about. I think they're doing the best they can with what they have.
I'm
But
not
my other
saying they're
point,
not. I'm not trying to be, like, I'm just saying the only reason why I raised it is because it's happening like literally the next day and the day after that of the main event. Do you get what I mean? Like, if it was happening sporadically, I'd say, well, people can't sit in their house all day. But like, you think that for the couple of days or for the week or 2 weeks, your nuclear scientist should be buried on the ground, for a while. I know some people are replaceable, but it's just, I don't know. I just don't feel good,
yeah,
hearing, 10 of them were just killed. Like, how easy is it, to kill these people? Their lives, they have families, they're probably killed with their families in the car or in the house. You get what I mean? So it's like, like,
no,
even
it's
the
a
even the
tragedy. I get
phones,
you.
yeah, even the phones.
I
Apparently,
know.
someone's making an announcement that WhatsApp and stuff like those things should have been established. I don't know. I
Well,
wouldn't trust the West with
this
my
gets me to my
information.
other point, which is intelligence in warfare. Now, I've studied World War II pretty in depth, and the amount of misinformation within troop movements, operations like bombings, etc., is overwhelming, and that's for a reason. So there's hundreds and thousands of false reports of actions happening and misdirections. It's all a game of trying to get the enemy to believe you're not going to be where you are and you are where you aren't going to be. Um, And this has to go into any decision being made at any given point. I'm sure Iran is receiving intelligence from a million sources that the Zionists are going to hit this place and that place. And sometimes there's just a ton to sort through and you have to measure them. I mean, if you think about it, like, look at what happened on 9/11. Everyone was telling, the FBI was saying, the CIA was saying to Bush, the Bush administration, there's going to be an attack on 9/11, and they didn't prepare at all. And that was because you always weigh these sorts of things. Now, 9/11, maybe there's a conspiracy there, so a little different, but you get my point. Like, there's always something you have to weigh, and it ties into the sort of crackdown on Mossad agents operating within the country. A lot of times, intelligence agents want their enemy to be where they know they are, where they can keep track of them. And intelligence agencies all over the world let other intelligence agents carry out horrible things in the name of keeping that asset where it is so they can keep track of it in the future. There's a few really good books on that, but I don't know. I feel like maybe I'm not as harsh of a critic because of my biases, right? And there's also the fact that I'm not like a military expert. If I were to really comment on it, I'd want to get a military expert on the show that we could talk to and ask questions. I could probably message Scott Ritter and see if he has a minute to come talk to us next week. What do you think about that, Sebastian? Should we?
Yeah, of course.
I'm going to message Scott. All right, but thank you so much for your questions and your comments, Rachel. We're going to move on to
thank you.
another
Yeah,
caller.
thanks for calling in. We hope to see you
Yeah,
again.
come back next week.
I will. I follow you already, so I think I'll get a notification when you go on. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, thank you. All right. Oh, did the other requesters leave?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's
and also,
good
if you're
timing
still
anyway.
listening, Rachel, we start the live streams on YouTube and then move them over to X Spaces. So if you want to subscribe to us there as well.
There you go. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us for the night. Thank you to everyone who joined the space, who asked questions and talked with us. That was awesome. Thank you to all of the super chatters and our audience in general. I'm going to end on sort of maybe a corny note, but I think corniness is warranted. We're living in an era of rapid change. Things are, Lenin once said that there are weeks that take decades and then decades that take weeks. And I think we're living in a week that has decades within it right now. And so I want all of y'all to think about how we are preparing, because right now we are not prepared for how bad I think it's going to get. We didn't even discuss the fact that California had U.S. Marines sent there, right? We didn't even get there, and how that ties in. We'll have to talk about that next week.
A senator got thrown in handcuffs.
Exactly. Things are only going to get worse before they get better, and we need to be in a position to be able to defend ourselves. We need to be in a position where we're organized and disciplined enough to weather any storm that comes our way. We can do that through the Communist Party. And if you're interested in fighting for your country, for your family, for your community, and for your future, go to acp.us/join. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Stand up, all victims of oppression, for the tyrants fear your might. Don't cling so hard to your possessions, for you have nothing if you have no right. Let racist ignorance be ended, for respect makes the empires fall. Freedom is merely privilege extended, unless enjoyed by one and all. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. Let no one build walls to divide us, walls of hatred nor walls of stone. Come greet the dawn and stand beside us. We'll live together or we'll die alone. In our world poisoned by exploitation, those who have taken, now they must give. And end the vanity of nations. We've but one earth on which to live. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in the song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. And so begins the final drama, in the streets and in the fields. We stand unbowed before their armor, we defy their guns and shields. When we fight, provoked by their aggression, let us be inspired by life and love. For though they offer us concessions, change will not come from above. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The International ideal unites the human